Hey, my name's Catherine Forrest, and today I'm going to be teaching you a little bit about SQL injection attacks. So, we're going to start off today with a quick refresher of what SQL is for those who may not be familiar. Structured query language, known as SQL, is a language used to access and manipulate database systems such as Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, or MySQL. Now, let's break that down a little bit. A query is a command for a database that typically inserts new data, retrieves data, updates data, or deletes data from a database. A query language is a computer programming language for writing database queries. Now that that's out of the way, we're ready to talk about what SQL injection attacks are. So, an SQL injection attack is the ability to inject an SQL query, which is a command, into a database engine through an already existing application. So, a successful SQL injection exploit can bypass login or impersonate another user. It could view, add, modify, or delete data and data tables. And if there are multiple databases running on a server, hackers can get access to those other databases. SQL injection is such a prevalent and potentially destructive attack that the Open Web Application Security Project lists it as the number one threat to web applications. Insufficient input validation and improper construction of SQL statements in web applications can expose them to SQL injection attacks. Now I'm going to walk you through a couple examples of what SQL injection can look like. The first example is content based blind SQL injection. Blind SQL injection is a type of SQL injection attack that asks the database true or false questions and determines the answer based on the application's response. So on our left, we have a super basic and standard login on a website. We can see where the user would input their username and password. And on the right is what the SQL query would look like. So let's walk through the SQL query. We have select ID, ID being a column, from users, the data table users, where username is equal to cforest and password is equal to my password. So if the login allows the user to type in SQL as a password, we can use that to bypass a login. So what we're going to do is add some SQL where it's not expected. Let's take a look at our select statement. It looks pretty similar to the one from before, but a little bit different at the end. So let's run back through it. So it says select ID from users where username equals cforest and password equals my password. However, we've added onto this or 1 is equal to 1. With the addition of 1 is equal to 1, that will always evaluate to true. Therefore, it makes the password essentially obsolete. If you have a valid username, it does not matter what your password is because this will always evaluate to true. Now let's take a look at an example of URL union SQL injection. At the top of the web browser I'm displaying, you can see that there is a URL, also known as a web address. Taking a deeper look at the URL, the part that says product_info.php is a file on the website, and after the question mark that follows up that file is the variable that is getting sent to the website that says which product ID is brought up. So, product ID 359 is the Syracuse Tackle Twill hoodie. And if I typed in another number, if I typed in 360, I would get a different product on that site. So what it is doing is sending the primary key of the product ID, and that's what brings up the products on the web page. So on the right, where the arrow is pointing, is the translation of what the SQL would look like from that URL. So let's walk through that really quickly. It says select star from the table products, where product ID is equal to 359. Let's take a look at what happens if we change what we are sending in the URL. So using the union operator, which is used to combine the result set of 2 or more select statements, we are going to write out the original URL, then add some SQL code onto the end of it. We're going to add union select star from information underscore schema dot tables. So product ID of 359 plus the SQL we added onto the end of it is going to be processed by the database as the product ID, the complete product ID. So now the product ID is 359 union select star from information underscore schema dot tables. Here at the bottom, we have our SQL query, which is select star being all columns from the table products, where product ID is equal to 359 union. So think about that as like gluing this next part on. Select star from information underscore schema dot tables. What the addition of this SQL is going to do is bring up a bunch of information about the Syracuse University bookstore. It's going to show the hacker what tables are in the database. Accessing this type of information gets that malicious hacker one step closer to finding a way into your database where they could steal or alter sensitive data. I hope today you gained some insight on the ways in which hackers can use SQL injection to get access to your database. Security is a vital component of programming, especially when it comes to working with data like SQL does. It is something that must be taken into consideration in every phase of design and development. Thank you for listening, and take care.